Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Indianapolis, Indiana, and this is 9 to noon. Boom. Combine show number 2 is in the air. I'm Paul Allen, joined by Vikings in-booth analyst for the KFAN Minnesota Vikings Audio Network, Pete Bercich. Nordo produces again in second and none fashion, and we have a big interview coming up here shortly. But first, from yesterday, what a whirlwind. It was so much fun yesterday. What did you enjoy?
Enjoyed getting the opportunity to talk to the new, how would you say, power figures and structure over with the Minnesota Vikings, and you feel really good walking away from that. You forget sometimes how long Brzezinski's been involved in all the areas. I mean, he sat in the draft rooms back in the day, when I was coaching with Mike Tyson in 2002. So he's been through all these different things. To hear his philosophy on draft, develop, and retain, those are all very good things to hear, and I feel much more confident about what they're trying to do and whether or not they'll get it done. Yeah, and Rob Brzezinski is the acting general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. You will hear that interview in segment number 2. But we begin with Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, and the interview started discussing the organization grieving the loss of wide receiver Rondale Moore, who recently died in Indiana at age 25. KO?
Yeah, it's been a tough few days, PA, when you think about losing such a young person, a light that in his short time with our organization was a guy we loved, having a part of the Minnesota Vikings family, and it's just so incredibly tragic to lose somebody like Rondale and the impact that not only he's had on our organization, but the previous organizations he's been a part of as a successful NFL player, his college journey. Inevitably, when you have certain things that come up, and these are the hardest parts of the job, that you find yourself, PA, in many ways asking, how could we have avoided something like this? And sometimes those answers are very, very difficult to come to and find. But I do know this. I do know that Rondale will be missed. He was beloved by his teammates, not only, like I said, in our organization, but other organizations as well, and meant so much to me. Any player that I ever get a chance to coach, immediately reserve some space in my heart that, I fall in love with these guys. I fall in love with getting to coach them and form relationships with them. So in many ways, that's the type of depth you feel when something as tragic as this happens, and we've got to continue to do our part. We have an unbelievable organization, resources for these players that have been built from the idea of making our organization the best organization to play for in the NFL, and we got to continue to do as much as we can to support these guys, love these guys, and be there for them, even when the times of year where they are apart from us, which seems to be circumstances that it's easier said than done.
Well said, and may God rest the soul of Rondale Moore. Now, to the lesson at hand, Kevin has joined the NFL's competition committee, and being at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center as frequently as I am during the season, every so often on Fridays there will be like a little confab with the media, and rules will come up, and you'll talk about things. So I know this has been very important to you. You care a lot about the rules, obviously, but why did you join?
Well, in many ways, it's more of a you get asked and you start showing up.
You can say no.
But I will say it's an incredible honor. It's I love this game so much. The future of not only the NFL but the game of football, the growth of our game throughout the different levels, whether it's flag football, tackle football at the lower levels, high school football, all those things. Like feeling like you've got a part in maintaining the greatest game in the world, but trying to do whatever small part that may be to collectively come together with a lot of great people on that committee and and a lot of great folks within the NFL family that helps to, as we navigate the future, whether it is, technology, whether it is the evolution of our game, the ways of making it safer for our players, will only enhance the ability of our game to kind of continue to grow and continue to be a mainstay as the greatest sport in the world. And I take a lot of pride in that. This game has done so much for me and my family. I feel very strongly that any chance you can give back to it in any way, shape, or form, you should be all in on that.
Vikings quarterback J.J. McCarthy heading into his third year. So now at age 23, physically he's going to mature, mentally he's going to mature. The offseason for McCarthy, what's key?
Yeah, I think the starting point is, outside of some bumps and bruises here, he's going to have a healthy offseason, which, obviously with his journey up until this point, he's gotten 10 starts where we've been able to see a lot of the things that we really, really liked about JJ when we drafted him. We've seen some growth. We've seen some of that development time over time, but we're still talking about, quite a few opportunities of that development phase and growth phase missed. Yep. So he knows it's a big off season for him. He didn't need anybody to tell him that. He certainly didn't need me to tell him that. But what I've really enjoyed about our conversations early on is he is hungry. He is, he's out in California right now working with, John Beck and some of the guys that he worked with pre-draft. Very detailed in what he really wanted to, decompress after the season and really go through layer by layer. Hey, what do I need to individually work on to make sure that I come back and I'm ready to roll in April? And he's working on those things. His continued growth in our offense and in our schemes will be a natural thing. He's a really smart, really smart player that I think he's going to be able to use a lot of that experience of those 10 games and the journey so far to get himself in position to have the best 2026 he can. And we've talked about it. We want him to be in a competitive situation because of some of that time lost. We've really got to push the gas pedal down and not replace development and coaching and teaching with anything, but really enhance it with a really competitive situation that I think our whole team will benefit from. And what that looks like, PA, it's obviously pretty early in that process, but I am excited about it.
Yeah, in my experience, the consistency comes before the leadership. What message do you think, for the entire team? Like the one takeaway that when you maybe last spoke with them a few weeks ago, going into next year, the number one thing that you want to see out of this whole team coming back? Yeah,
I think it's important when you're pinpointing your sights on the future and where you want to get to. We always want to be an ultra competitive organization. We want to compete and have success so that we can find our way into that postseason dance. And however you get there, it's about attacking that one game when you get there. But when you inevitably get there, you're going to lean on a lot of the experiences you've had up until this point. And what I mean by that is, we've basically had 2022 and 2024 where whether it's consistency and having the same quarterback in the game for the better part of all of those snaps, we won 13 and 14 games. Didn't get it done in the end. What did we learn from that? Let's take those lessons and apply them. 2023 going 7-10, having massive amounts of injuries, coming off of a year where maybe we elevated the expectations with year one, but we didn't meet those in year two. We come back year three, have that 14-3 year, and then here we were in 2025 with in many ways some questions that came up, put us into a spot where you never want to be in a season, which was 4-8 at one point. But I think the ultra lesson we learned this year was, in addition to winning differently than maybe we've won in the past, really leaning on our defense, trying to run the football, not turn it over, play smart football. We went from 4-8 to 9-8, learning some of those lessons. But I think what we learned about each other, the culture that's been built in our building, we weren't. There was no participation trophy, PA. There was no, hey, guess what? The secret thing is you actually did sneak into the playoffs because you've won 5 in a row to end the season. There was a lot of work that was done without any reward. There was a lot of goals that were set set to pull ourselves out of the doldrums of where we were at 4-8 without any gift, without any special anything other than us looking each other in the eye in our organization and within that team meeting room, Pete, and deciding we were going to go do something for each other. And when the team was able to accomplish that, I think we can use that moving forward. It's not going to, I'm sure fans are going to sit there and say, hey, we didn't get anything out of that, but I promise you we're going to use that for when we inevitably get to where we want to get to. And that's part of what makes this job fun, is you're constantly recalibrating, you're reassessing, but you're using this experience to apply layers of depth to your team. And I'm not just talking about depth charts, I'm talking about who we are as a team and the fabric of our ability to go attack this thing moving forward together, and I'm excited about it.
Now, here at the Combine, where there are a lot of rookie drills, but it's free agency season. And, Kevin O'Connell and former general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah won a lot of games together. Rob Brzezinski is the acting general manager. He's been with the team nearly 30 years. What's it like working with Rob in the early stages?
Yeah, Rob is fantastic. But let me first and foremost just start out and just, I haven't had a chance to say a whole lot, but, Kwesi and I and our relationship, both professionally and personally, was and will always be very strong. We care about each other. We built, like you said, a team that was able to win, 60-something% of our games since we've been here. And that will never be lost on me, the impact of not only the friendship built, but the working relationship that we were able to build, and I'm very thankful for my time with Kwesi, and inevitably, the ownership decision to make a change there, and getting an opportunity to work with Rob in this capacity now. We're really leaning on Rob's experience. Rob has been a tremendous resource for me since I got this job as the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings in so many ways over the last 4.5+ years, and we'll continue to do that. But now Rob is really entrusted to bring together a lot of layers of our organization, whether it's a really talented personnel staff, a coaching staff that I believe is evaluating to fit our schemes, and how do we have that all come together. It's going to be from Rob's leadership and working in conjunction with not only myself but those other folks in his leadership team to help make our team better, to make good decisions, stack good decisions on each other, and get ready for a really good 2026 season.
And along those lines, I guess my point in asking this question is that the evaluation, you guys might be in free agency right now, but the evaluation of college talent, being at the Combine, these guys that are coming in, coaches have been doing this, and you have been doing this. Now, the impact might change depending on how the whole, and I'm not asking to give away family secrets, but how it's all set up. But you guys evaluate talent every year, so this is not anything new.
No, and I think it's important to note that our scouts on the road doing this year-round, evaluating talent, and really, going into year 5 of understanding how do we kind of take all of that information and the collection of that information and the expertise of a lot of talented people, and then working in conjunction with the coaching staff, with the personnel department that is in-house at our facility, under Rob's leadership, and how do we bring all of that together to find the best fits within how do we improve our team, both in the present, but also as we project into the future, and then how does that addition impact the guy that may be playing next to him. We've got a lot of talent on our roster. We feel really good about the makeup. Guys who are smart, tough, love football, love being great teammates, and are competitive, in everything that they do. We find a lot of guys like that to fit in with the guys we already have on our roster. I think we're going to be in a really good spot.
And one of those guys you found last year was Eric Wilson. I mean, he played out the skin. What are you guys planning to do with Eric with free agency season approaching?
Yeah, Eric was phenomenal for us when you think about bringing him in, returning back to the Minnesota Vikings. He started out his career here, and just the feelings of a lot of the folks that were around him when he was a Viking, it made it a really easy decision to get Ewell back. What he did from there was spectacular. I mean, he's one of our most consistent players. did so much for our team. Versatile, consistently showing up every single week, doing different jobs, but playing at a really high level and demonstrating a lot of those things from a play style standpoint. He's incredibly smart. He's, a guy that loves playing the game of football and enjoys it every single day. He makes your team better. He makes your building better. I know I speak for, everyone in our organization when we're excited about the possibility of bringing Eric Wilson back, but obviously we're not the only ones that watched his tape from last year, so it'll be competitive, and ultimately what we're going to try to do is do what's best for our organization, and hopefully that means Eric Wilson's a part of it.
Yeah. What do you think the ceiling on a Jalen Naylor would be? A very, very good football player. You've been with him. You've kind of raised him from a kid.
It's a great example of player development. You bring in a guy, not necessarily an early round pick, but a guy that comes in and early on, Jalen, the biggest question mark with Jalen, and we've had this with maybe some other players on our rosters, can they be available enough to consistently continue to grow through great coaching from Keenan McCardell? Congratulations to Tony Sorrentino, by the way, taking the receiver position with the Cardinals. Great coach for us that has worked underneath Keenan. But Jalen Naylor is a guy that's just been, the ultra example of what you can be in this league when you can consistently attack getting better. You have the skill set that Jalen has, which is as a complete receiver. He can play all three spots.
And he's speedy, right?
And yeah, he's speedy. He can do a lot of different things, and he's willing, as a guy that's smart and he's tough and he loves football, to go have an impact on our offense. So once again, another player that we're not the only ones watching the tape. We feel incredibly strong about what Speedy's been able to do in our building, and we'll see how these next few weeks play out.
So Kevin, if you were considering bringing in a veteran quarterback to compete with McCarthy, amplify him, or whatever, two parts. Would Carson Wentz be in the equation? And secondly, what are some traits you're looking for in a veteran quarterback?
Well, I think we were incredibly fortunate to have Carson join our team when he did last year. You think back, we saw some of the things Carson did during that season when he stepped in for JJ when he had his high ankle injury. Carson Wentz showed up about 5 days before the season started. Right. He was not a part of our off-season program. He was not a part of the greater sum of training camp. And for him to come in the way he did and be ready to step in, and specifically in regards to that, that Cincinnati game, we were coming off of losing our home opener, and we win our opener on the road in the division against a team that inevitably won the division. We lose to Atlanta. You don't like losing at US Bank Stadium. It's important for us to win. He steps in and played a phenomenal game against Cincinnati, and his real first exposure of getting to play. And to me, that is a veteran quarterback that has done a lot of things at a high level throughout his career, and ultimately was impactful for us. Wish we could have had Carson available and healthy all season long, but he absolutely is a guy that made our quarterback room better, even with his late arrival, and definitely somebody that we're thinking about. But I think traits in general, PA, I think it's one of those things where you look at it from a standpoint of what has helped our offense go throughout our time horizon here has been consistent quarterback play. And when I think about that, it's being accurate with the football. It's being smart with your decision making, with how you run the show, to inevitably allow Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Hawk and a Jalen Naylor and our group as a whole to feel like they can then impact the game at a high level, not only just in the pass game. It's how it all works together in the run phase as well. And I think there's other things, toughness and obviously the ability to fit with not only how we want to play, but we're going to fit things to what our players do best, but how they fit in with that huddle, how they fit in with that group to enhance the all-11 feel of that huddle is massive to what we're looking for.
And lastly, just the way you laid that out with the fact the team wins 9 games.
Yeah.
You use 3 quarterbacks. You had a fair amount of injuries, certainly to the offensive line, but you're a 95% chance to sweep the Bears.
Yep.
Didn't work, but you were right there. You swept the Lions. and the division is just rock solid. I mean, this division is so tough, isn't it?
Really good. I mean, the coaching, the playing, the competition. I know we've got the greatest fans in the world. I know there's incredible passion for all the teams in our division. It feels like that when we go on the road. It certainly feels like that when we host those teams at US Bank Stadium. We are in, if not the most difficult, we're in the most. We're right up there at the top as far as the NFC North. And every Sunday in our league matters. Every single Sunday in your NFC schedule, in your non-conference schedule, it all matters. We get 17 of them. We've got to put everything we have into trying to get as many wins as possible. Consistency, the continued growth and development of a lot of our players on our roster, and also making really smart decisions to add the right guys, add the right kind of players to our team, and then roll it out there and go compete. It's the best thing about our league, PAs. No matter all of these things that happen at these events, the combine and the draft, all the different things around, the schedule, really, blah, blah. We do a lot of things, but nothing more important than rolling that thing out there 17 times and trying to do everything you got to do to win.
Enjoy Indianapolis. Thank you very much for the chat.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Nordo?
PA?
If you were here, it would be start the show with KO. Start the show with KO. Start the show with KO. That's segment number 1, courtesy of TimberTech. What's on deck 9 to noon includes next segment, acting general manager Rob Brzezinski. Then after that, the scribe, Ben Goessling from Indianapolis. Then Kevin Stefanski, coach of the Atlanta Falcons. That takes place at about 10:20 Cornfields, followed by Courtney Cronin of ESPN. She covers the Bears. She'll be here with us in Indianapolis. And then former Minnesota Vikings quarterback Jeff George is going to be with us here in Indianapolis, and that'll be we promise, a live wire-related conversation with the gunslinger, Jeff George, about 11:15. Marathon segments 9 to noon are courtesy of Steve's Appliances and stevesappliances.com. Go to the website, hit shop deals, and get paid on some fantastic appliances, or stop by the beautiful showroom in Mounds View. Brian and Sarah, everybody with Steve's Appliances, thank you wholeheartedly. stevesappliances.com. The man they call Briz, acting general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, joins us next. It's Indianapolis Combine Day 2. For Pete Bercich, I'm Paul Allen. Nordo produces, and this is FM 100.3 KFAN.
The Fan. You like that? 9 to noon.
Just listen. Hey, welcome back to Indianapolis. Pete Bercich, Paul Allen, and Rob Brzezinski. He's the acting general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. He's spent 27 years with the Minnesota Vikings, so I think we're all going to smile right now a little bit that we're here on this couch at the JW Marriott in Indianapolis with somebody that those of us who have known Rob for quite some time, all right, he's known as a capologist, and he works with the salary cap, but we've always known, without exactly knowing the roots to team building, that you have philosophies with building a team, and you have opinions and you have ideas when it comes to roster building that go beyond just the salary cap. First of all, congratulations, and what do you think of that?
Well, I mean, I just finished my 33rd year in the NFL, and I've been in every meeting. I've seen a lot of roster cycles, and I certainly have my own, team building philosophy, and I've studied every other team in the league as well. But I think when you talk about a philosophy, it has to be a philosophy that's ultimately coming from ownership. And what the Minnesota Vikings are doing as an organization, what's our philosophy? What's our vision? How do we want to build, our football team? And that's bigger than me. That's bigger than Coach O'Connell. It involves all of us, but ultimately, that rests with ownership as well.
And you're kind of you're the Jeff Baxter of the NFL. You know who Jeff Skunk Baxter is?
Yes, I do.
The guitar player for Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Well, what people don't realize is that he worked at the Skunk Works with Lockheed Martin. He was a brilliant engineer, but everybody knows him as a guitar player. You're known as a contract guy. But I know you from 20 years ago being in the meeting rooms for the draft, being involved in the draft. I mean, it feels great that I can finally blame you for Brian McKinney's draft number being put in there late, right?
Right. And a 98-day holdout.
Yeah, exactly. So,
come on, man.
But no, I'm just saying, I guess people aren't aware that you've been so successful at the contract side of things that the other part of it, all the other things that you've done over the years has been not overlooked, but you're just not known for them. But it made perfect sense to me when they announced it, and I'm like, this guy's been in draft rooms. I mean, you managed the Mike Tice, right? Scott Studwell trying. I mean, that you had to have learned a ton from back in those days.
I've seen a lot, and I love the team building aspect of it, and that's how I've grown up in this business, and over the years the game has become much more of a business, right? No decisions can be made in personnel or otherwise without considering the financial implications. And so, literally, it requires organizational alignment. There's a head coach, there's a head administrator, and there's a head personnel person, and everybody needs to work in tandem and in alignment, to make good decisions for the organization.
All right, so, moving forward, whether you're the active GM, you become the full-time GM, capologist, we're going to talk about Matt Thomas, a new hire here momentarily. Does this mean at home games at US Bank Stadium, 2 booths down from where Pete and I call the game, does this mean if we have a Minneapolis Miracle moment that you no longer are going to jump up on the table and cheer and high-five fans? I mean, do we have to be more buttoned up?
I think we're all fans, and gosh, that was some memory, wasn't it?
Yeah, I looked over to the right. Jonathan Gannon's banging on the glass. Stefanski's ruffling papers, being nice and calm. And there's the capologist on top of a table cheering with fans. I'm like, yes! Yeah, you love this team, man.
I do love this team. And I was just talking to some other people, and in my years here, in my time, realizing what the Minnesota Vikings mean to our fans, it's really, really special. And I just want to be a small part of helping deliver a championship to our fans. They've been waiting a really, really long time, and it's going to mean so much to them when it finally does happen, and it will.
We mentioned the name Matt Thomas. He recently was hired. For those who are not familiar with Matt, who is he and what does he do?
Matt Thomas, well, he and I, first of all, were both trained by a gentleman by the name of Brian Wiedmeyer, who hired both of us. Actually, Brian hired me in 1993 out of law school. When I came to the Vikings in 99, he hired Matt Thomas to take my place in Miami. So I've known Matt forever. Our team building values and philosophies are completely aligned. He won a Super Bowl with Seattle, participated in 2, retired 2 years ago, and offered to move to Minnesota for 3 months to help out. That's what kind of friend he is. And he is one of the most talented people in this business. And then, of course, we have Emily Bates. Internally too, who's a rising star, and so we're well equipped on the business side of football.
So when you say that you study all the teams, is that something that's new for you now from a personnel standpoint? And what are some things that you see that maybe other teams are doing? Shoot, we can talk about the champion Seahawks or whatever, and John Schneider. But what are some things that you see that you like?
Well, I would say number one, I've always kept my own roster building, team building philosophy. I have a file, I have a document, and then I study. I've studied I originally started working with Don Shula. He was the head coach of the Dolphins when I started my career, and from Ron Wolf to Bill Parcells to anybody that I can study and learn from. I try to do that. With respect to you mentioned John Schneider.
Yeah.
John came up the traditional way, right, of being a traditional college scout. But what people don't realize is his superpower is bringing people together, having a shared vision, having alignment, and that's what makes him so special. I mean, people think that this business is about a general manager identifying players on his or her own. It doesn't work that way. We have 10 or 12 scouts looking at every player, and you're building a consensus. And that's how you make good decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Was just you mentioned all the team building things that you've learned along the way. What are some of those? And I'm not, you have to be specific, but just what have you learned, and what are the main potholes or mistakes that you've seen teams make?
I think you have to build through the draft. So it would be draft, develop, retain your core, supplement in free agency, but you also have to find players that are Minnesota Vikings fits from an intangible standpoint. I think those are the key tenets. And then from there, you have to have guardrails in place to make good decisions and to stack good decisions and not try to force something that's not there. You see that happen a lot because there's this desperation to fill holes and needs and make things happen. Well, if it's not there, you can't do that. You just have to, if you stack good decisions, then ultimately you will have built a team, because we're not picking players, right? We're building a team.
If you are the salary cap guy, the contract guy, and we're sitting here doing this interview in Indianapolis, February 2026, we're probably not going to ask you this question. But as acting general manager, whether it's interim, full-time, or whatever is next, J.J. McCarthy and the season he just had, and heading into his third year as a 23-year-old young man who has a right to physically and mentally mature, what are your thoughts on that?
I know Coach O'Connell has talked a lot about J.J. McCarthy, and we have the utmost confidence in J.J. He's been through some adversity, and it's very, very hard to play this position in the NFL. And so sometimes I just feel like people are a little bit unfair to him. They don't know, in addition to his talent, what a great person he is, what a great leader he is, how much he cares, how much he works at it. He's gifted. Yeah, obviously, he's had some difficulties, staying healthy, and hopefully that'll be in his rearview mirror. But this JJ's got everything it takes to be successful in this league.
You mentioned building through the draft. I think just your thoughts on Donovan Jackson, who I thought had a pretty sneaky good rookie campaign, and then the emergence of Dallas Turner, and what do you expect to see out of those two guys going forward?
Well, again, draft, develop, and then the next step will be with those core players to hopefully retain them, and you're going to see those guys continue to take a step each year and get better, and part of that is a baseline talent, and then part of that is developing, in which our coaches do such a great job, getting the best out of our players, but it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight.
The combine is always a double-edged sword, so to speak, or a conundrum, in that it's identified as rookies heading into the draft being here and doing interviews and drills and things like that. However, free agency is next, so therefore there are a lot of conversations, I would imagine, within personnel departments about free agency, what kind of cash we have to spend, what the next 2, 3, 4 years looks like. So, this is so, the post is so new still. I mean, you've had to dive right into that, right? With your salary cap and, your free agents, Eric Wilson, Jalen Naylor, players like that, and also analyze the landscape of what you may want, and that's a tricky balance, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the last 3 weeks we've evaluated our own roster, gone through initial draft meetings, free agent meetings, strategy meetings. We know the areas where we'd like to improve, and so right now we have a general idea in the draft where we could get some help in the draft, where we could get some help in free agency. But again, all you can do is identify targets, and do your best to acquire them responsibly, and you can't force what's not there. And so we're going to have a disciplined process to how we do things and make decisions, and we're going to do that together.
Well, with linebacker Eric Wilson, I mean, this is another fantastic one of many to have Rob Brzezinski, the acting general manager for the Vikings, here with us, because Rob's been here almost 3 decades. So he was here when Eric Wilson got here from Cincinnati undrafted. I think his first signing bonus was $10,000 or something like that, and he was on a series of one-year deals. Well, Eric just played out of his skin last year, so forget the contractual part of it or the commitment as to whether he'll be here or somewhere else. Stories like that, seeing guys undrafted come into the league and then do what he did last year, that's phenomenal.
You know what, though? You're exactly right, but he is a phenomenal human being.
Yeah.
He loves to play the game of football. He's a great leader, and he's extremely talented. And you put all those things together, it's you got a great football player, and you got even a better person.
Right.
I'm sure with all, when you talk about decisions with free agency in college, leaning on coaches is important. Retaining Brian Flores, and what does that mean in that regard? Because I think it was just a huge part of the development and continuation of what you talked about earlier.
Yeah, and like with respect to Flo, we get the questions a lot with Flo, like how involved is Flo in personnel, right? And typically the coaching staff knows what type of players they need to execute their scheme. So it's their responsibility to communicate that to the personnel department to create alignment. Mm-hmm. But who knows better the players that fit a scheme, than the coaches or Brian Flores? Now what happens is, from being a former coach, you don't have time to evaluate. But Flo loves it. Flo loves to evaluate. He puts the time in. He loves the process. And so, again, as long as we're operating within our team building philosophy and our guardrails, and we have alignment, with coaching and personnel, why would we not lean on Flo?
Yeah, for sure. And Pete touched on something a little bit earlier, but, equity is extremely important to all of us. And, you've done work with the Vikings from Denny Green through Mike Tice, Brad Childress, Leslie Frazier, Mike Zimmer, and then into Kevin O'Connell. So I would imagine that, if you sat back and thought about the way things went at certain times, you can pull. There's so much from which you can pull that has worked, that chances that have been taken that haven't worked, and put that into a melting pot and move forward doing what you're doing.
100%. And I think there are common themes, and it's always about having the right people being aligned, caring about each other, challenging each other with constructive, hard conversations at times. No different than, with our partners, right? Yep. You sometimes you have to have a hard conversation, like with my wife, but hopefully you do that, and then it brings us closer together and it makes us stronger. And that's the kind of environment that really makes you special, I think, and brings you closer, not just as colleagues, but as people. And then you can just do some crazy special things.
But you have to love, and you're not going to say this about yourself. That's what everybody says about you, and everybody says that, God gifted him in a way. He naturally galvanizes things, and we've always known you as a calm person, very competitive and very excitable during games, but a calm person. And that, with Kevin O'Connell being a former coach of the year and a well-respected coach in the National Football League, specifically when he has the same quarterback for more than X amount of games, working with Kevin, and not only as salary cap guy, but now acting general manager. What's your relationship like with Kevin, and what do you like working with?
I mean, he's just a fabulous person. Mm-hmm. You guys know him well. We're in such good hands having him be Kevin O'Connell is our leader in football, yes, right? He's the face of our franchise, from the standpoint of being forward facing, setting our culture. He's the guy that's out there every day. Now, it's our job to work together to bring together the coaching staff and the personnel staff and have checks and balances and a philosophy and all those things. But I feel really blessed about the way that Coach O'Connell has welcomed me into the position that I'm in now, and the confidence that he has in everybody, and it's going to be a really fun process moving forward.
That's awesome.
In 27 years, what do you want your legacy to be?
I want to be a small part of delivering a championship to our fans. I just try to envision what that would look like. I can see it. I can, and it's just, this is a special. Everybody talks about the cliche fan.
Yeah.
How we the best fans in the world. But the Minnesota Vikings are in the being of our fans. It means so much to them. Just want to be a small part of finally delivering that Lombardi.
Let's close with a two-parter. First and foremost, in casting your gaze the way of X amount of months from now is kind of impossible to do, but from your heart, is this something, being a full-time general manager for the Minnesota Vikings, is this something that interests you, that you would like to be?
I can just say this. Like, feel very honored to be in this position right now, and it's an awesome responsibility, and I think the owners have entrusted that in partially me, but in the incredible experienced and talented football staff we have, particularly a talent evaluation staff that I think rivals anybody in the NFL. And so right now, I'm looking forward to seeing all these people shine. Mm-hmm. And we're just going to focus on what's ahead of us in this next couple of months, and then we'll go from there.
And lastly, as a salary cap guy, and you mentioned 1999, well, Pete Bercich was on that team. How much did you squeeze it?
It's actually, he went down in the preseason. It broke my heart.
I was almost in the pro bono file. Yeah, exactly.
When he came in and asked for a $2,000 raise, you said no, $1,700.
You want to talk about represents a Minnesota Viking?
Yeah.
Leader.
Yeah, I know.
Tough.
Yep.
Loves football.
And our broadcast
Smart.
team.
Versatile. I mean,
he's awesome.
This is what you're looking for right here.
Yeah. Hey, we are so happy for you, man. That's why I started laughing when you sat down, because this is just fantastic. And I can't wait to see which way free agency is one thing, but as the active general manager, your name is on the draft. Yeah. No matter if O'Connell, Grigson, whomever is making the picks, I just think that's fantastic that you're going to have your name officially tied to picks. I mean, what if we just go lights out in this draft? That'd be unbelievable.
Hey, we're going to work together. We're going to make good sound decisions.
Yes, sir.
And then we'll see where it goes from there.
He's one of the best. Rob Brzezinski, acting general manager for the Minnesota Vikings from the 2026 Indianapolis Scouting Combine. With Pete Bercich, I'm Paul Allen. Thanks for watching Vikings.com and listening to KFAN. Well, looky here, Indianapolis. Day 2 of the Scouting Combine for 9 to noon with Pete Bercich and yours truly, Paul Allen. It is Ben Goessling, our beloved scribe, at Ben Goessling via X, covers the Vikings for the Star Tribune. He tweets, writes stories, does mini pods with Emily Leiker, and we managed to corral and or wrangle in said scribe during his very, very busy schedule. Now, we heard from Kevin O'Connell on the radio show 45 minutes ago. You sat down with him yesterday, and I was, in the background of some of these pressing questions that were being asked. What did you learn? Because it was a very informative conversation. And good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, it was. I think my big takeaway from both Kevin O'Connell and Rob Brzezinski was all options at quarterback are on the table, and that's kind of what we thought. But it was interesting to hear them kind of both say, even the possibility of getting somebody who's a veteran, somebody who could come in as the unquestioned starter rather than just a competitor. I mean, Rob said everything's on the table. So, and that's certainly a reflection of where they're at with J.J. McCarthy, but also I think a reflection of the need to win. I mean, Kevin O'Connell saying, my feelings about J.J. McCarthy haven't changed, but the timeline has, I thought was a very interesting way to put that, and just a reflection of the fact that you've got a veteran team, you've got a coach that's heading into year 5 without a playoff win, and all of those factors are real, and it makes the ability to wait for a kid to kind of finish all of the development that he needs to do, it changes the math on that a little bit. So it was interesting to hear him reflect on that.
I guess to add to that, Coach O'Connell said something I don't know if I've heard him say before, but he used the phrase finding ways to win games. Or winning games in other ways.
Yeah.
I use the finger quotes.
Yep.
And so I listen to that and go, okay, maybe he wants to invest in the defense.
Yeah.
Right? And win other ways besides his offense running up and down the field on people. Combined, so do you think that's going to affect what they want to do? Because I'm of the camp that says the move that they make and how big of a move will tell you, I think, how they actually feel.
Yeah.
Right, as far as JJ's future. But that was the first time I heard him really mention not only just winning games in other ways, but maybe that's one of the ways in which they're going to try to turn this thing around. There's more spend right now, I think, on the defense than the offense. So maybe that trend will continue. I don't know. I mean, it could be a totally different situation or different team in that regard.
Yeah, well, and you look at the end of the year when they go on that 5-game win streak, the main driver of that was the defense,
Absolutely.
no doubt. So when you look at what they've done and you look at what that group can be under Brian Flores, we've seen it now for 3 years, and I think even at moments last year where it's like, okay, our team's getting a beat on what they're doing, they came back and said, no, we have all of these other checks we can get to. We have enough flexibility that you aren't going to stay ahead of us. Now, how much does that change if it's not Harrison Smith back there? I think that's a question and a problem they'll have to solve. But, yes, the fact that they played as well as they did defensively, I think there is going to be part of that, a realization that this defense can help you win games if the offense is productive enough, you're sustaining drives, you're controlling the clock, you can be a better complement to that defense than perhaps they've had.
It's not like Gruden didn't do that in Tampa.
No,
he had a great defense and got the best he could out of his offense, and ended up, Tony Dungy doing kind of the same thing in Indianapolis. The other part that was interesting was just, like you said, the timeline.
Yeah.
We've never really heard Coach O'Connell talk about timeline. Do you think they just extended the general manager, then let him go.
Yep.
You have kind of an interim general manager right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that Coach O'Connell in any way, shape, or form is viewing that as instability? Yes, we're in a win-now league.
Yeah.
But is that putting an exclamation point on the win now? And do you think that much is at stake this season for Coach O'Connell?
Well, it's hard
in that regard.
Yeah, it's hard to know if it'll be this year, but it was interesting to hear him say, we all know what we signed up for, meaning if you take one of these jobs, you have to have results or you're going to get fired. So, I mean, they've had a lot of results in the regular season for the most part, and he made the point that when they've had consistent quarterback play, they've won in the regular season. Now, the currency that matters, as we all know, is playoff wins, which they don't have yet. So,
got to get there first.
You do. You have to get there first, and then you probably need a quarterback that can help you make a run or at least, be competitive in these games once you get there. So I think there's a realization of, it's year 5. He's had certainly a pretty effective run to this point. Wins a Coach of the Year a year ago, wins the division year 1, all of those things. But the timeline does change because people start to say, okay, I see other teams make runs. I see the Bears win the division, and you look around, and patience in the NFL is not a commodity that is in deep supply. I mean, the NFL stands for not for long is part of the deal.
And that's where Brzezinski, when he's talking about draft, development, retain.
Yep.
That part of the equation's really been missing.
Yes. Yeah,
right?
Totally has.
And so that's kind of the leg of the stool where he's like, hey, I haven't really gotten a lot of help in that regard. Free agency, we've really done pretty well for the most part.
Right.
But that sense of urgency just seemed a lot more there than before.
Yep, totally agree with that. And I think some of the draft stuff has been, when they haven't hit on those picks, it changes the math with the cap. It means that you're starting to make more decisions about older players that have injury risks as well. But Rob Brzezinski talked about guardrails a little bit yesterday, and I think some of that, as we figure out what it means for the draft, may just mean let's make picks, let's get guys in here that can contribute, rather than trying to get terribly overly complicated with maybe some of the trades, all those kinds of things. If they can have a draft where you get a few starters or solid contributors, which has not happened out of a draft in a while, where you say there are 3 or 4 guys from this class that can help. I mean, you look back to the last really great draft they had, 2015, when it was Trey Waynes, who became a solid starter. It was Danielle Hunter, who was great. Eric Kendricks, who was a Pro Bowl linebacker. Stephon Diggs in the 5th round. They are in the NFC title game 2 years after that draft. So when you get that level of contribution from a draft class, it can matter pretty quickly, and they haven't had one of those in a long time. I think when we talk about timelines, we talk about urgency. The draft, even though it is, we think of it as something for the future, it can matter in a pretty short timeline, and they have to have some of that contribution.
4 in the top 100, you certainly have that opportunity this year.
Kwesi Adofo-Mensah has landed with the San Francisco 49ers as a personnel executive. So San Francisco, so the money he got here, part of it will be offset by his job with San Francisco. Does that mean, say he got $1 here per whatever amount of years, does that mean San Francisco can give him like a nickel and then the Vikings got to pay the rest?
Well, yeah, and there's not a lot of incentive for San Francisco to say we're going to pay you top dollar when the Vikings are already paying you, because what that basically means is they are paying part of the bill that the Vikings were already going to have to pay him.
Jeez.
So, essentially, he's not going to make more money.
Yeah.
It's, how much does it save the Vikings? And the 49ers may be saying, hey, you're going to get paid either way. If it's all the same to you, we'd rather not help a competitor in the NFC.
Did we get a backup quarterback for that trade?
A Mac Jones possibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that was necessarily in the terms of the deal, but yes, that is
just checking.
Yeah,
just checking.
It's worth. The worst they can do is say no. Right?
Yeah, I can't remember if last time we chatted I asked you this or not, but it's hitting me hard right now. So Kwesi Adofo-Mensah with Kevin O'Connell, a couple of Tuesdays following the season, does his season closing press conference.
Yep.
And then I think I think I've seen this reported, but there was that meeting or whatever with the ownership and the yearly meeting, and Kwesi, I believe, was part of it.
Yep.
And then he was out. So like from putting him in front of the public and talking about the season to that, it's just it's confusing.
Yeah,
to me it is.
It's unusual. I mean, it's rare to see a executive or a coach do a season-ending press conference and then get fired after that. But I think some of it is the process for the Wilfs is a pretty extended thing, and they'll do annual meetings with Kevin O'Connell's part of it, Rob Brzezinski's part of it, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's part of it. I think Brian Flores, by virtue of the fact that he was negotiating a contract, probably is having some of those discussions with ownership at the time and saying, where are we going? What's this going to look like? So all of those things are part of the end of the season process, and the Flores dynamic of it is unique this year because of the contract. So once they take in all that information, they then say, okay, all of the things we've heard, what do we want to do? I think some of it is they are pretty deliberate with a lot of these things, and it does kind of lead to an odd, kind of a clunky feel to the whole thing when he does a press conference and then a couple of weeks later he's out. But that process for them is one they're like, this is what we think we need to do, and if the timing is a little weird, okay, but we're not going to rush through it for the sake of the optics, I guess.
Ben Goessling, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com from Indianapolis. Another segment with Ben on a myriad Minnesota Vikings-related topics when we return to the Indiana Convention Center, Combine Day 2 for 9 to noon on KFAN.